an original MCM production.
Good morning. We would like to invite everyone to today's Policy and Finance Committee for Monday, June 26th, 2017. I'll ask the Commission Secretary to do the roll call.
Commissioner Eli is excused. Commissioner Gramling?
Here.
Commissioner Perez is expected. Commissioner Swan?
Here.
Commissioner Manzanet?
Here.
Commissioner Hermes?
Here.
You have a quorum.
There's one item of new business, item 17-064-6, authorization of the Executive Director to execute and revise memorandum of understanding with the Waste Management of Wisconsin Incorporated, memorializing tentative, tentative terms of future agreement for the supply and purchase of landfill gas and Metro Recycling Disposable Facility. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Schaefer, Executive Director. If you remember, last July, you approved a memorandum of understanding with Waste Management, which is very similar to the one that you have in front of you today. After that approval by the Commission, discussions continued with Waste Management, and engineering continued with Waste Management, and we came to a point where we realized that we needed to renegotiate some of the items. So last year, you approved an MOU that would have a selling price that we would purchase the landfill gas for at 45% of the NYMEX for natural gas. We've negotiated that number down to 36%, so it went from 45 to 36. The other major change in the MOU is the prior document had us paying Waste Management to design, build the treatment system out at the landfill. The current MOU just has us doing that. It was just easier for us to attain a easement from them and then to do the design and construction ourselves on that property. So we'll design and build the treatment facility. We'll operate that facility as well at the landfill that connects to the existing pipeline, and then we'll get this gas from them at a lower price than what we had before. And this is a 20-year agreement. So if the Commission approves the MOU today, then we'll take this document and we will use that as the basis to negotiate a final contract, which would then come back to the Commission at that point.
Chair, I move approval.
We need a second on that motion?
Second.
We got a second. So appropriately moved by Commissioner Hermes, second by Commissioner Swan. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, the item is approved to go to full recommendation to the full Commission.
That's it.
That's it. I'll make a motion for adjournment of the Policy and Finance Personnel Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good morning. We'll call the meeting of the full Commission to order. Will the Commission Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Bohl?
Here.
Commissioner Eli is excused. Commissioner Gramling?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson is expected. Commissioner Krieger?
Here.
Commissioner Manzanet?
Here.
Commissioner Martinsek?
Here.
Commissioner Perez is expected. Commissioner Swan?
Here.
Commissioner Hermes?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of proceedings of regular Commission meeting held May 22nd, 2017. I'll accept a motion to approve those minutes.
So move. Second.
The motion by Commissioner Bohl and the second by Commissioner is there further additions or corrections to those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved and are so recorded. New business, item 17004-1, Operations Maintenance Report for May 2017. Morning, gentlemen.
Commissioners.
Morning.
Patrick Obanoff, District's Manager of Contract Compliance.
Scott Royer, Veolia's General Manager.
With the Operations and Maintenance Report for May 2017. In May, the district was in full compliance with our Wisconsin Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. Veolia was in full compliance with the Operations and Maintenance Agreement. We did not have any combined sewer or separate sewer overflows. Our percent capture year-to-date, 100%.
This table shows the influent and effluent characteristics of both water reclamation facilities, and everything was within their normal parameters. This shows Jones Island effluent biochemical oxygen demand and total suspended solids in the effluent, and they were, over the course of the last 13 months, it's been well below the permit limit as well as the contract limit. This shows South Shore effluent BOD and TSS, and again, we're well below the permit and contract limit. This shows Jones Island and South Shore effluent fecal coliform, and again, we're below the limit. This is Jones Island effluent total phosphorus, and we remain well below the monthly permit limit. This shows South Shore's 6-month moving average for effluent total phosphorus, and again, we're well below the permit limit.
Moving into the conveyance and storage system. May was the first month we were below average for precipitation this year. Still had 7 storm events that put a total of 712 million gallons of storm event-related sewage into the tunnel. We were able to capture everything. We have not had any combined sewer or separate sewer overflow events for May or this year. And this is a graphical representation of the precipitation year-to-date. So you can see again for the first 4 months we were pretty well above average, and for May we were just slightly below average. Moving into biosolids production, the green line represents the product requested by the district's marketing group, which is more product is requested during the first half of the year when there's the heavy shipping season. The orange line represents the Milorganite produced, which lags during the first half of the season but is steady. We will catch up. The production will slowly catch up to the request towards the end of the year. We ended our month of May with just over 2,000 tons of product in the silos, well below our operational maximum of 10,000 tons.
And these graphs show the maintenance backlog for preventive maintenance work orders as well as corrective maintenance work orders, and we're in our normal range, and we met all of the PM and CM metrics for the month. And this shows our safety performance for the last year, and we did not have any safety incidents for the month of May. I would, at this point, like to bring up one unfortunate event. Last Friday, we had an employee, Gary Radliff, who has been with us for 30 years, and he passed away at the Jones Island plant late Friday afternoon. So he's going to be greatly missed, and again, I'm sad to report that. So, if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer those.
Questions from the commission? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Operations Committee report meeting. Commissioner Krieger, would you please send us through that?
Yes, good morning. The Operations Committee did meet and considered 6 items all of which were recommended to be approved for the full commission, at the full commission. And all those items on the agenda, I would make a motion to approve them at the full commission.
Thank you. The motion by Commissioner Krieger, the second by Commissioner Manzanet. Is there further discussion upon the block items?
I believe the second was Commissioner Martinsek, to clarify.
Are you confused by the M's this morning?
The M's are getting me this morning, apparently, yeah. I stand corrected, and I think the Commission Secretary is well ahead of me on this one. Mr. Krieger, did you have further comment?
No, you're going to call the vote, right?
Yeah. I thought you raised your hand for discussion.
No.
Behind on this one, too. All right. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is carried.
There's no further items or business to discuss from the Operations Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Krieger. That leads us to Policy, Finance, Personnel Committee report. Commissioner Manzanet, would you guide us through that?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. The Policy, Finance, Personnel Committee did meet. Items 7 through 10 were all recommended to the Commission for approval.
So move.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. The motion by Commissioner Manzanet, the second by Commissioner Swan. Commissioner Gramley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, this was presented to us so long ago, I can't remember the detail, but on item 10, the conditioning plant at the landfill, can you just refresh my memory as to how that relates to the conditioning and treatment across the street?
Sure.
There are two systems, they're redundant, is that correct?
That's correct. So we'll have a treatment system or a conditioning system that is currently operational on the advanced disposal side. Right across the street at the waste management landfill, there will be a redundant treatment facility or conditioning plant that will treat the waste management gas. So both landfills will have their own treatment systems, which will then send the flow to the same pipe.
And we own or will own and have the responsibility for operating both of those treatment facilities, or
No,
just the one on the waste management side?
Just the waste management side. On the advanced disposal site, they operate and own that facility.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the block item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion has passed. The ayes have it. That leads us in the organizational administrative phase of the agenda. Executive Director's report. Good morning.
Good morning again. We don't have any staff recognitions today, but we do have the first update for the 2018 budget that Mark Kaminsky and Mickey Pearsall will provide.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Kaminsky, Director of Finance and Treasurer.
And Mickey Pearsall, Deputy Director of Finance.
So today we're going to give you the first briefing on our 2018 capital budget and operations and maintenance budget and kind of where we stand on the request status. So we'll start with the capital budget. Our goals, 25% average cash financing over 6 years and outstanding debt less than 2.5% of equalized value. In 2018, we are estimating a tax levy increase of 0 to 1%. Couple things on that point. The reason we're striving to keep it low and actually striving for a 0% increase is, as we will discuss later, we are going to see a significant increase, as we have mentioned a year ago, on our operations maintenance budget. The other thing I'd like to point out is we're projecting 4% increases as we go through 2018 through 2021. I'm sorry. Last year when we adopted the budget, we were projecting increases of 4% for 2018 through 2021. So how can we go to 0% or even to 1% increase? And there are some reasons, and some very good reasons. If you remember, we were, through 2017, having significant debt service, larger than normal. and that finishes in 2017, so our debt service going forward is less. And our debt service going forward reflects lower interest rates. The bond issue that we just completed, the sale, and that we received the proceeds earlier this month, we had a record 2.816% on a 20-year bond. And I know it's not final, but we're hearing good news out of Madison. If that goes forward in terms of increasing the subsidy and clean water fund loans, that reduces our debt service. Also, Kevin Schaefer heard good news that we're going to receive a grant of up to $2 million on the Esterbrook Dam. And all that work is being done in 2018. So that reduces cost in the 2018 fiscal year capital budget projection. And finally, our allowance accounts that we put in, especially for our construction contracts, have been coming in very favorable. We haven't had to dip into them for significant modifications or other unexpected events. So we've had good news and we're able to do this. So I just wanted to clarify, but going forward, we are going to be projecting 4% after 2018. Our out-year tax levy increases, as I state, 4%. And I'd clarify, too, we'll know a lot more when the 2050 facilities plan is approved later or early next year in 2018 as far as those 4% projections. But based on what we know today, we will continue to have those increases. This chart table shows you where the majority of the spending over the next 6 years is going to be. And as you can see, rehab, replacement, improvements in our facilities, such as the plants and the conveyance system. And this is consistent, if you remember, just recently we had the Public Policy Forum report that said the district was facing these challenges going forward and was facing challenges to keep our tax levy down. We also see water course and flood management continue to be a significant. And then we have our capital programs such as PPII, Green Solutions. We have our ongoing research, planning, and study, green infrastructure, as I mentioned before, allowance accounts, and then new initiatives. Changes that will hit the next 6-year planning process. The impact of the 2050 facilities plans will not be known until later in 2018 and may impact the out years of the 6-year plan. Never mind. She threw me a curve here. There was another slide we must have deleted. But anyway, now going forward to the 2018 operations and maintenance budget goals. Our current estimate for the 2018 user charge billings is a 12% increase. Our 2017 increase was 2.5%. Again, this is related to the expiration of our contract with Veolia Water and our extension that begins March 1, 2018. So 10 months of 2018 will reflect the new extension. And as you, if not, I'll refresh your memories. The main reason for that increase is that in the initial contract with Veolia Water Milwaukee, there was no corporate overhead, which runs approximately 6%, and there was no margin, not profit, margin built in those contracts. So the impact of those two items together runs approximately 11.5% just alone on that extension. We will be analyzing the estimated impact and strategies for 2019 and beyond. I'm going to have Mickey go into more detail, but our main highlights with respect to the O&M budget was the Veolia Water contract, fringe benefits. It's not just health insurance, it's also the funding to the City of Milwaukee Employee Retirement System, the pension plan. Machinery and equipment repair, not just on capital, but also on O&M, and ongoing needs in our information technology area.
Slowing it up, so we'll just keep going.
I'll let you do this. She's pulled a couple slides. I said, these are yours, Mickey. Well, she took the easy one. Anyway, No, I'm sorry, it's not, and I'm not, I mean, I want to be on the record of saying here, we are concerned about a 12% increase. But, and I've been here for a long time, keep in mind, the first contract with United Water Services from 1998 to 2008, we saved over $160 million. Our second contract with Veolia Water, the first one with Veolia Water, had a projected savings over $35 million. And they've lost money on that current contract. And I think going forward, yes, we have another 10-year, and we are going to have an increase next year. But we plan after that increase to get back down to the 2.5% annual increases in our user charge billings as we go forward. I wish it could stay, but we have to have that increase. But I want to now turn it back. Okay.
And this slide is just talking about our forecast. So we publish a 6-year forecast in our budget book, and that gets us out to 2023. But we know that we have a 10-year contract, and we want to be able to manage our reserves in terms of that 10-year obligation that we have. And as Mark was saying, we want to make sure that we can manage the user charge increases through that duration. And one of the biggest pieces there is the use of our reserves, primarily the user charge stabilization fund. And this reserve was created when the UWS contract was initiated, and we have been able to successfully use that through, to date, so through the entire UWS contract, as well as where we're at right now with the Veolia contract. And for the past 2 years, we have had very large surpluses on our O&M budget, so we've been able to make contributions to that reserve. And now moving forward, as we look at the next 6 years and 10-year windows, we want to make sure that we can use those reserves to offset the increase to the user charge billings in the most sustainable way.
We will be returning over $3 million, $3 to $4 million in user charge stabilization funds in 2018 to keep it down, and then going forward still maintain a significant balance there. And I'd like to also point out, and I'm just doing this real quick math, our annual household charge is approximately $120 a year to a household. And so with a 12% increase, you're talking just over $1 a month. It'd be about $14 a year additional increase. And as we mentioned earlier with respect to the capital budget, if we can maintain that at a 0%, it won't be a significant increase when you combine both budgets on that household. Go ahead.
Okay, so this slide is just talking about the next steps for the 2018 budget development. This was a high-level overview of where we're at with the requests, but in July, we will come back with a presentation that has a little more detail on what we expect the proposed budget to look like and any other remaining issues. We have the commissioner budget briefings scheduled for either August or September. We usually have the proposed budget out by around Labor Day weekend, so the briefings will come around that time too. And then after that, we have the budget public hearings that will be scheduled for September or October, and October. The ad hoc user charge committee will meet in October and review what we're proposing for 2018. And then if the commissioners have any budget amendments, we would request that those be submitted to us the week before the PF&P meeting in October. And then we will review those, analyze those, and discuss at the budget adoption, which is the October commission.
With that, any questions you may have at this time?
Commissioner Manzanet?
You may mention during your presentation that at some time in the near future, we would have some idea when the outcomes of the 2050 plan would be impact. Do you anticipate that in the next couple of months, or is that?
It'll be March or April of next year.
Of next year. Okay.
And then based on that, based on the information that comes out of the 2050, then the prioritization becomes very important.
Right.
As which projects may move forward sooner because the benefit's greatest to the community.
Okay. Thank you.
Further question? Mr. Granley?
Thank you. Mark and Mickey, I appreciate your good work to balance out the overall impact between the two budgets on the household as you described, Mark. I think it's worth pointing out that much of the cost control effort went in during the contract negotiation period. And for people that may be looking at that cost increase just in the context of the 2018 budget, we're missing part of the story, which is that efforts over the course of multiple years were really focused on understanding the real costs of operating the plants and in the ways in which we wanted them to be operated, and then working with Veolia to figure out how to, over that contract lifespan or extension lifespan, reduce the financial impact on households and users. So for new commissioners at the table and going forward, it may be helpful for you to seek more information about what all went into that budget, the contract renegotiation process, because there's good detail there. And while an 11% increase on face value is to be concerning, there's a much richer story there that really reflects staff's good work and Veolia's good faith efforts to work on an extension that made sense for everyone.
And I would just like to add objectively that we cannot expect, well, let me start by saying it's been a great financial success, the first two privatization contracts the district's had to our ratepayers. Significant. I mean, but we can't expect UWS lost millions and Veolia's lost millions on this current contract. And we can't expect our private partner to enter this. They're not nonprofit and they're losing money. So we're trying to balance that, and we did bring outside assistance to look at the reasonableness of corporate overhead and margin, and it was documented that from a national perspective, those were well within the ranges. But I think we're positioned for another 10 years. And the key is, yes, it's a hiccup. The rates are going up, but then our goal is to keep those stable going forward so that there is no roller coaster to our ratepayers. They can expect reasonable increases and not back up and down.
Sure. So over that the course of that 10-year extension time frame, there's greater certainty year
Yes.
over year than there is between the 10-year period to the next 10-year period. In that transition year. So, and then just one other request: is it possible to provide some higher level itemized detail on the water course spending that you're a 6-year window? If possible, if you could follow up by sending that out, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Only one comment, I'm sure you're on top of it, is that we need to reach out well in advance to our users and let them know this is coming, and I'm sure you're already on top of that. But I think we need to do that as we progress in your briefings to the board and your further development of this budget, that this is a very likely issue, and provide them the same explanation that you provided us, I think is totally legitimate. But I'm sure you're already on top of that. Thank you.
Mickey. Both.
Oh, and by the way, Kevin, if I can just add something here?
Sure.
Not to these guys, but we have in the gallery today our new commissioner that'll be on board with our next meeting, Mayor Dan Devine from the city of West Allis, and we welcome him to the commission next meeting. I don't know if legal counsel will allow this during our closed session, but I think it'd be advantageous for Mayor Devine to stay during that closed session. No? Okay. I tried, Dan. All right. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say that we'd report back the water course spending in July commission meeting, but then I realized you're gone. So we will send something out to you to show the breakdown of the water course spending. The next item is item D, which is the 2017 Affirmative Action Plan. As you remember, in May, we presented the plan to you, and you were concerned about some of the comparisons that were used. So, and Candace is gone today, so if there's any questions that we can't answer, we'll get them to Candace and she'll help us answer them. But Candace did a lot of research trying to whittle down the size of the geographic area that we were looking at, and we were able to get it down to a county level, which I will show you as we move forward through this. So this is the same table that you saw in May, where you've got the primary metropolitan statistical area, which is Milwaukee, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington counties as the comparable area. And for the analysis of utilization for minorities in 2016, you'll see that there was two job title groups that we were underutilized on. The problem trying to get to a zip code level or some of these other levels that the commission asked for is trying to get those job titles, those group job titles, at that same fine detail. So we went through, and this was what you saw last month, or in May, yeah. We were able to get it down to the county levels. We went from the 4-county area down to Milwaukee County, and you can see at the different job titles, the different variation in percentages. And then if you took the same table, go back, sure. No problem. If you took this, sure, if you took the same table that I showed you with the PMSA and just looked at Milwaukee County, where we were underutilized in 2 categories before, now it's 3, using that data. And then if you stack one on top of the other so you can see it all in one slot and have text that's too small to read, the top half is the PMSA and the bottom half is the Milwaukee County comparison. I'm just waiting in case there's, sure.
So Mr. Chair, is that all right?
Please.
Not only does it jump from 2 categories of underutilized to 3, but the number of positions is also significant. Just point that out. So in the professionals, it goes from 2 underutilized to 9.
Yeah.
In technicians, 2 to 8, if I'm reading this correctly. So it's
We're much more underutilized, right?
Right. Measuring, I guess my point is that measuring it by categories that are underutilized is one metric, but also the number of positions that are underutilized is another important metric. Thank you.
And looking at some of the others, quite a few of them were overutilized by a significant amount too. So, doing the same comparison for the utilization of females. This is what you saw in May. Again, 2 underutilized in professionals and technicians categories. Here's the comparison to Milwaukee County. And then using the Milwaukee County comparable, still 2 in those 2 categories. Again, the numbers change. And going top to bottom, you want me to go back again? Just one?
So market availability in Milwaukee County for service and those percentages would indicate that that's the percentage of women in the working age group available in total? So 73% of administrative support would be, 73% of the population in Milwaukee County that's work age would be women?
That have jobs in that kit.
Patty Fisher.
Patty Fisher, Senior Human Resource Generalist. So of the females in Milwaukee County that, or of the population of people that have administrative support jobs, 73% of them are female.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Here's the comparable for Milwaukee County, and there's 3 underutilized here. And looking at the 2 comparables. So that's really the last slide. As we move forward, and we would come back with the affirmative action plan if the commission agrees to it, we would start using both of these as comparables, both the PMSA and the Milwaukee County, so you could see how we progress towards that. But from what I understand, trying to get it to a finer detail, a zip code or something like that. We just can't get the job group titles down to that level. And if there's any questions.
Further questions? Commissioner Graham?
Because I had a chance to talk to Kevin about this late last week, I was also able to just get clear and confirm that, with one of the other points that was made when the affirmative action plan was presented to the commission in May, not only were there concerns that I had about the geography of the comparison data, but also the time frame of the comparison data. It was 2010 data that we were looking at. While we have a smaller geographic area here driving this data, it is also 2010 data. So we're looking at, for an affirmative action plan, looking at the current and near future, we're looking at data that is approximately 7 years old, generated by the last decennial census. I guess I'd encourage staff to send these slides. Oh, these slides were sent around to the full commission late last week. So the commission has them. I'd encourage you to take a closer look and understand what they're telling us. Also to encourage you to continue to press for better data at a finer scale. There is, from my perspective, no shortage of really smart people in the world with access to a lot of data. It still continues to surprise me that there isn't this kind of data available at a smaller geographic scale in a more timely fashion. And while this is coming to you perhaps during the July commission cycle, I won't be voting on it except for perhaps at the committee level in a couple of weeks. But going forward, I think we need an affirmative action plan and a handle on the existing workforce that is perhaps clearer than this data shows us. So I appreciate the effort to get to the county level. I think that's a step in the right direction, but I think there's still quite a bit of room to improve with this comparison data. Thank you.
Just because of the timing of our documents, we probably would not come back to the commission until September because there's no meeting in August.
Further discussion? Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
We'll do that moving forward then. And that concludes my report.
All right. Then we'll accept the motion to go into closed session. Mr. Graham?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 and for the purposes as set forth on the published notice and agenda.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of going into closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll go into closed session after a 5-minute recess.
An MCM production.